Hello and welcome, Amy. I'm here together with Amy Holem from the US, and Amy is a self-deployed. She has her own company. She's doing audio forensics. She also registered a new patent, what is just going on and will be released in the next time. She's also doing thermal tomography. She worked for Icator in the past. And she was in the military. And Amy is also a so-called targeted individual, a person who is attacked with frequencies, with radio frequency, with microwaves, with lasers, stuff like that, with secret technology. And Amy tells us a little bit about her story today. And she also tells us a little bit about her work, what she's doing. And she's also helping a lot of TIs, doing forensics for them. Amy, maybe you can explain a little bit what you are doing and how did you get a TI? You told me that your story began in the past. I think it was after the military. You told me when you've been in the military, and after that something happened and you got a TI. How did you get in the program?
I became in the program back in 2016. I did a sleep apnea test at a VA hospital out in North Chicago, and they did a sleep study on me and placed 100 different electrodes on my head and on my chest, gauging the sleep irregularities and so forth. So yeah, after the testing, about 3 months later, I end up getting a phone call from an FBI agent that wanted to do a birthday party with me. And then she stated basically that she was going to do a severe background check on me. And if she didn't find what she was like, that she would make my life a living hell. Turns out that
Why did she say that? I mean, she asked you, "Can you do a birthday party for me?" And then she said, "I will make your life a living hell." This is a little bit strange. What did you was there a problem with this woman, an argument? Did you have any fight with her or something like that? Or why did she say that to you? This is
No,
strange.
I've never had any fight with her. I'm very personable person. When I was starting to ask her personal information like her name, her phone number, her address, the time of the event, that is when she started to flip out and um, just act out in that type of way. She, it wasn't anything personal, um, but being a targeted individual, we all experience weird things. And I'm sure this whole thing was a setup from the beginning. So, because of the sleep apnea test at North Chicago, that was actually run by the Department of Defense because the DOD owns that hospital. The VA hospitals, there's two different steps. There's federally owned and then they're state contracted. The state contracts and then the DOD owned the North Chicago. So they also own the VA hospital that I'm going to now, which is Lake Nona, who has been falsifying my medical records and falsifying my information too, as well.
What
So,
what means VA? What means VA? What is this? VA?
Veterans Affairs,
Oh, okay.
it's
For
basically
military connected people, right?
yeah, that's where they have women's health programs. So if we need to go see the gynecologist or any type of testing, blood work done, we go to the VA. It's supposed to be free for us. We pay a certain amount of expenses, and because I have disability from the military, I'm covered through the VA. So that's how that's supposed to be run and operated. But um, all the DOD contracts put the veterans inside of programs. And I probably gathered that every single veteran that is homeless on the streets is probably a victim from the Department of Defense. They usually have connections with the Army Research Project, or depending on the military branch that that veteran belonged to, whether it was the Marines, the Air Force, the National Guard, Coast Guard, or anything in relationship to that. So,
But isn't that a little bit strange? Why should they put all their veterans inside of secret programs? I mean, these are people who did their job. Most of them, I guess, did a good job for the military or so. And why should they put their ex people into programs? What makes that sense? What kind
well,
of sense does it make?
it's one because they make money off of the programs and the projects for putting the military members on them. They also get uh, kickbacks, and there's a contract with inside the military saying if you do not, sorry, once you are, our term of service does not end till 8 years after uh, time of peace in time of war. So they could call us back at any given point of time. And since we're always in a state of war, we're still government property. So if I get a sunburn, I could get court-martialed because we're considered government property. So the government uses this and actually put the victims inside the program because they're no longer in the fields or in uses. So they make money and profit based off of that. So that's just one avenue that they have. They feel they have the right to torture all of the US veterans when they become out of service.
Can you explain how they make the money with these people? How is this
Well,
done?
data is basically liquid gold. So all the data that they collect from the human experimentations and the child sex traffickings, they make money off of. So when they make videos, they sell the videos out. The perpetrators buy the videos that they created, and then they make money and profit, and that's all based off of the cryptocurrency. That's part of their child sex trafficking operations. They gain money for selling the children. They gain money for selling the victims. Every victim that they want to attack, or the perpetrators want to attack, the government agents, they pay money in order to attack us. So they're making that all in an additional revenue. And then you got the biological side. When they're doing biological attacks, whether you have a chip inside your body, graphene, gene manipulation, mRNA, that all goes back to the pharmaceutical companies. That's why the US government protects all the pharmaceutical companies and you can't go after them like the COVID-19. Um, those different types of shots. So all of it is data, all of it is money, all of it can be exchanged through the different types of programs like the Brain Initiative Act. Now hospitals share everybody's medical records without your permission. You know, it used to be where nobody could access your medical records, but because Obama placed in the Brain Initiative Act, now everybody has access to your medical records, whether you want them to or not, which is actually a HIPAA violation because they have no right. They were never treated by us, but those hospitals are running illegal human experimentations as well. So pharmaceutical companies, even through the COVID-19, you saw mass layouts or layoffs from people who were not vaccinated. The same thing, they take away their medical license. If you do not obey them, you do not do what we say, we're going to destroy your life and take away your licenses so you cannot practice. So we're in a time right now where they're just finally putting implementation of full control into all signature areas, including the medical license, the tyrannical police officers, and and the experimental programs. So, and the US military has control over that. So they
What do
make
you think?
profit
Where the
multiple different ways.
What do you think? Where goes the data of the targeted individuals? Secret services, military, or
Well, that all
private?
depends on the type of project or program that the person on. One of the data banks that I found out was going to the Department of Energy. Um, that was a straight connection or data transmissions where they're collecting that information. The other one is the WHO, the World Health Organization. They have access to a lot of the medical information that it's being data transferred. A lot of the data is stored onto the drones or the devices that they're using for the electronics. And then after every single perpetrator uses that electronic, they actually extract that data from the box and then they format it, clean it, and then they give it to the other person to use. So whoever that perpetrator was and what they were using that device for all depends on the data and where it's stored and where it's sent to. So it could be sent to multiple different spots or locations.
Okay, but what is very interesting, and I would find out is how do you get back all these traces to the company or to wherever is the perpetrator or is the source of the attack? How do you follow the traces? How is it done? Is it done by a kind of software or
Well, a lot of it is
how
done
can you
through
see
the audio.
what is behind or who is behind? Because if you are a victim, okay, you get attacked, maybe you can do some measurements and you see the frequency, you see the pulse rate or something like that, but you don't see where it comes from, you don't see the source. And this is always the problem, that you don't see who is the attacker, who is behind the attack. And how do you know that? How can you find out who is behind?
Well, a lot of that has to deal with the audio forensic portions that I actually do. When I'm capturing the communications, the perpetrators talk back and forth along with the employees, and there I gather network information. So I could tell usually by the frequencies or the spectrums, I could ID the frequencies, gather information within the FCC database, find the company and the corporation that that FCC belongs to, what experimental projects they belong to. They give identifying information, even longitude, latitude. You could tell what type of propeller is being used, if the drone is uh, gas motion or is it uh, solar technology systems? Um,
Well,
so
one
there's a
moment.
lot of different identifying information that
Yeah.
a lot of times I capture a domain or server. Um, you can look up those domains and servers and match the information in regard to the audio that was captured inside of that file. So a lot of it can be traced back and identified through the audio forensics.
Well, you just said that it could be drones. Many people are very skeptical about that because drones, in my opinion, drones cannot store so much energy that is used for an electromagnetic attack on somebody. So how can a drone have so much energy inside of it to attack people with microwaves?
Well,
How is
one,
this
it's
possible? What do
how
you think?
okay. Well, one, a lot of people are also ignorant in the technology and they believe other people who don't do the proper research on the technology. There's different types of drones out there, from military drones to personal drones. If you're getting with a regular, like a sandbox drone, which has limited features, you can build on that drone. You could make it have bigger propellers. You can make it have video camera components on there. A lot of the drones are used for video voyeurism aspects, but the military drones have those built into the operating system. Any radio wave has built-in linear phase array systems built into them, or a high voltage alternate current or a direct current built into them. A lot of them also have three-way phasers that are built into the components of it. So those are a small little chip that is built into the operating system. So when you're talking about storing the energy is coming from a specific device. It depends on how they're connecting to that device and to the person. But drones could be used for weapon systems. Some drones have subacoustic sounds. Some drones are laser technology systems. It just depends on the type of military drone that is being used and how they're connecting to it. Now they use the satellite systems to connect to those devices and electronics. They have to link you from one place to another using radio frequencies. Everything is based off of radio frequencies. When you're transmitting and sending a signal, that's how you transmit and send it. It's always the radio waves. So when people say, no, drones aren't used, satellites are used, everything is used. Drones are used, satellites are used, underground radio towers are used, cell towers, cloning devices. There are multiple different types of tools that can be used, software, modulators, plug-in, data acquisition systems that could be built into it as well. And until you know what type of weapon system is being used on you, and that is what helps with the discovery. Because with the audio forensics, identifying the frequency, not only that, but capturing the information, it matches that. And looking at the spectrums, I could see their vector management or their quadrature amplitude modulation systems, and I can identify where they're being connected to through that satellite or uplink transmission. So it shows up as a bright little dot in a small little circle. And when each one has a radio transmission back and forth with each other, that dot highlights up and is signature, which we can identify the frequency, the call sign, and the person behind the system. So it all correlates together. So when people say they need to educate themselves, and that is the problem because a lot of people do not bother reading. They don't want to read about the technology. They don't want to look at it. I mean, you could go to my website alone and you could look at the different types of equipment that I've discovered and have been releasing to you guys, but yet nobody has opened it up to actually look at it, read it. Subwoofers are another form of equipment that is being used. You need a subwoofer in order for like voice to skull technology systems. Why? Subwoofers, subacoustic, subsonic. If you actually pay attention and know anything about sound, subwoofers actually cannot be caught on an audible level. But with the forensic process, we could bring that up. I could identify the bass in that sound. If you have bass going on and making a video, and then you play it back, you will not be able to hear that bass out of the car speakers that you're hearing outside on that video recording because they cannot. But when you discover it on the lower side and bring that up, you can hear it. Why? Because they're subacoustic and below the average hearing level on any type of device. So that is one of the major pieces of equipment that is being used for the attacks with the voice to skull technology systems and the synthetic telepathy or the remote neural monitoring, because they cannot hear them up on an audible level. And if those perpetrators don't have that built-in equipment that they're using, that's when people could hear them on an audible level, and any person could hear them, from me to your next door neighbor to the person down the street. Anybody will be able to identify them.
Well, there is this German patent. It's called Gedankenübertragung, what means thought transmission, and they describe it very well, how voice to skull can be done via a maser with microwaves, or even with a laser also. And the maser or the laser is used as a carrier wave, and on that carrier wave they modulate a signal wave, and that signal wave is that you can hear in the end. This is in that patent. They don't use any subwoofers. They just use microwaves and lasers, and it can be done. It can be done from a satellite. It also can be done from a Wi-Fi tower, or just from a car or a device in the neighborhood.
Every electronic device has built-in features. They have what I call hidden features inside of them, capabilities. So even a small device like this, right? This can connect to satellite communications. This can connect to, has a Doppler radar system built in. This can connect to water oceanography. So although this has no Wi-Fi capabilities, no internet connections, it still has capabilities of connecting to different types of systems. And in order to connect it, you need a satellite communication in order to link it from one location to another, just like GPS. It's maybe just like GPS.
Maybe this is the reason why they are able to connect to any computer, even if it's when it's offline. Maybe because of some technology like you just described, because they are able to connect
extractions and there's offline extractions. They usually with computer systems, because most average person uses Windows, right?
Absolutely, I agree.
No victim knows Python. No victim knows Linux, right? Or Tails. So you all use Windows operating system. That's where Google comes into play, because they have backdoor access into a Pokélong script, which Pokélong is the operators of the operating system. So they're the creators of it. So they have backdoor access that you cannot tamper with. That's above a level 5. You're basically the creator of Windows in order to gain access. And that's where they're accessing the files inside. A lot of them, when they're sitting outside of the network system, they don't go in the LAN. They sit outside in the WAN, the wide area network system, and they leave the LAN alone, and they just mainly do a middleman attack and do intercepting. But that's most of the victims for the hacking capabilities. And a lot of victims that I help don't like my answers because I'm realistic. They're like, well, it constantly blocks out, or I can't open up my audio or video files for viewing. I can't take pictures. It won't allow me to. Well, that's basically because your storage. I mean, if you have so many videos and so many pictures on your storage, you're not allowing enough memory space for the computer system or the processing unit to process the programs, because there's not enough space, which means you need to remove those and then store them on a USB and then delete them from your phone. And then your phone will start working properly fine again. Why? Because you need memory in order to process things. And people forget that your phone is a computer system too. So, I mean, yes, there are a lot of hackers, but when you think realistically about the situations at hand, and then they finally do what I tell them to do, their problem dissipates and then they don't have it again until their memory is full. So a lot of it isn't really hacking. It's them messing up their own devices and trying to disable things too. Yes, we all are, every electronic device is hacked, but they have a lot of orders not to tamper with a lot of different devices. And people are going to hate me for that, making that statement, but I don't care because it's the truth. So, I mean, you have to know about the technology to understand the technology. And unless you actually read up on electronic, everybody should be reading about networking. Everybody should be reading about radio waves and communications. Why don't we have a team doing that? So learning properly on how everything works and correlates, we're going to find more answers.
Yes, of course. Amy, you talked a lot about equipment. What can you talk? Can you say something about your equipment? What kind of equipment are you using? Is there a special software that you use? Maybe you don't want to be to say too much about your
No, I
equipment.
mean, there's different type of equipment that I use. Like one of this is, I don't know if you can see it.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, it's a audio enhancement tool. It's a plugin. It's a VST, a VX, an AX, and it's installed into my audio boards and my sound boards. And basically, it helps with a lot of the communications, bringing them out at a quicker pace in a certain part of the processing when I'm actually cleaning up the audible or audio files for the clients. This probably cost about $1,500. So for something like that, it was for a computer. Another one I have is a dongle. It's a detective ID. That is software equipment for my video photography. It's a little dongle or a plugin that I could use. This is used by law enforcement agencies for a lot of my video photography or video forensic processing storage units. I have I'd say another little one is called an omnivore. The company is no longer in operations. They're the ones that I actually got my certifications from, which means I have to find a different company soon, probably within the next year, to get recertified, because I can't update my certifications anymore through them. And usually I have to update the certifications yearly, you know.
Okay.
So now I have to find a new company to update it. But this one is basically an interface overlay system. This gives me dates, timestamps, any processing on it. It usually could keep track of different types of orders or step processes on it. And when I save a file, it does video components too. So when I'm doing the FCC, or the frequency identifications, I use a lot of the interface overlay systems with for that. So this is another little dongle that I use. There's other different types of technology. I use Quick Hash, which is a free software tool, subsonic spectrum analyzers, sonic analyzers. I use spectrum analyzers. I don't have my forensic computer up. So this is just my regular personal computer.
Yeah. One question is, you are using mostly audio devices for your measurements, but we are talking about electromagnetic attacks. So I think a lot of people would like to know, how is it possible to detect radio magnetic waves in audio files. This sounds a little bit strange to many people. Can you explain
Well, you're
how
not
this is possible?
detecting the microwave. That's not what you detect at all. You could identify the sounds of the microwave. You could identify the attacks on the body. So if they're hitting your heart, I could literally hear the heartbeats of the victim when analyzing the audio files. If they're attaching or they have it connected to a pulse, or if they're going in through the herb triangle or the femoral triangle, right? A lot of them have pulse rates for that. The truth detector test, right? The lie detector test, that is based off the equipment that is discovered within the audio forensics. Them talking about it helps out a lot too, identifying the different types of equipment, names, software that are being used, locations. So that could give identifying features as well. But never identifying, you could identify the sounds of the weapon systems, like a solar beam. You can, because a solar beam is going to sound different than a microwave pulse. A microwave pulse is going to be more like a wah-wah effect, wah, 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 right? Or tinnitus might be a low hum. Now, with the tinnitus, we could actually hear the tones that are being produced throughout the files, because it's a music, either they have to have a tone generator or a music component in order to play that tinnitus, right? So those usually they're attached through subwoofers, right? Because they have to have that subsonic, subacoustic attack, and then you just bring it up through the audio processing. But identifying it's not saying, yes, this is a microwave. I have to do a lot of research. A lot of my research goes back to NASA. Space components, when they're in outer space, space has sound to it. And so I spend a lot of time on NASA, believe it or not. And I try to identify the sounds and the features of the weapon systems to prove that it is a microwave energy weapon. Or if it's a laser technology, laser is going to be more like a zapping sound. Electrical, it's going to be static, right? So those sound components is what helps identify the weapon systems too that are being used for the attacks on the body. And it's all depend on audio. Audio forensics is not easy. It's not simplistic what everybody thinks it is. You send me a 2-minute file, you think it should be processed within 2 minutes. No, it could take me 18 hours to process a 2-minute file.
Wow.
Why? Because I'm paying attention to the sound components, like those buzzing, those electrical sounds, those musical tones. I have to hear cars passing in the background. I have to hear if the AC conditioner is kicking on or off, and the additional components or communications that are coming through the electrical grid system. Is there a cat in the background? Is there a dog in the background? Are people washing around? Are you at a park? Are you watching television? I have to the commercial that is playing in the background to extract those communications from the communications of the perpetrators that they're talking about. So there are lots of different things that a person like me has to pay attention to that you guys do not even think about, the different types of sounds. So it's not as simplistic as everybody says it is.
Yeah. You said that there are many different types of attacks that can be done with many different devices, like cell phone towers, satellites, and so on. And this leads to the question, what do you think, who is behind? This is a very controversial question, because some TIs say, it's my neighbor. My neighbor wants me out of my flat. He wants my flat, or he wants my house. when I'm dead, then he gets my house. The next one says, especially women often say that it's my ex-partner. He wants to have revenge with me because I did something bad to him, and now he is doing revenge or something. And other people think, no, this is all bullshit. It's state agencies, it's experiments, maybe secret services, and so on. There is also this database, the terrorist screening database, and many people think the victims are taken out of this database to be experimented on. But what is your opinion? What do you think? Who is behind? Who is doing all these experiments?
The major people behind it, the major people behind it are the U.S. military complex. A lot of the information, about 90% of the information that I collect is NATO, the U.S. Army, the British Royal Military, and Facebook.
Facebook, really? Wow.
Yes, well, because they have a lot of the meta technologies. Neurallink, obviously, they're a second hard one, but I usually find only Neurallink on Florida citizens.
Elon Musk? Neuralink is Elon Musk, right?
Yeah, he's Elon Musk. So out of the 100 victims, every single one and down in Florida, even other victims that have visited me or come down to see me have Neuralink technology because they're in that state at that time. So there's a lot of it is jurisdictional. Like California. California is the only state that I actually find a lot of supernatural or occult information on. I find a lot of child human sex trafficking in California and Florida. Michigan, I find a lot more in usually the child sex trafficking, but I find more on the nautical side. Why? Because of the Great Lakes that are out there in Lake Michigan. So they also have borders to Canada. So a lot of it has to deal with the child human sex trafficking. Out in the UK or Belgium, I find a lot of it has to deal with NATO and the British Royal Military, with the US on the side. So it kind of just all depends. It's all jurisdictional. Each one or each victim has a different thing. Now, when they're talking about neighbors all being involved, it could possibly be the neighbors, but the main leaders, they get their orders from somebody, right? And that's who that we're paying attention to. And when they get their orders, there are ground units, there are stalking units, they have mobile units, people that just sit around in cars all day long and stuff like that, kind of like your Uber and Lyft drivers, right? You're not going to find normal applications on their phone because basically what those are built-in applications. So the government creates the phone. Usually it's an Android device. I've only found like an iPhone on one or two occasions, but usually Android is more manipulative. You can easily wipe it, and you could download Linux on there and then wipe the whole entire operating system and then install your own programs and apps. Kind of like what I'm doing with my patent, right? I'm creating an app for everybody to use. Same type of process. You could use that app and they install those apps. So those phones are government issued phones and they do have to return them at the end of the day. So usually they have an office or a special place that they sign in and sign out with the stalking units or their neighbors, or they have specific types of contracts. You're contracted for a month, you're contracted for 2 months, or you have to do specific features. But neighbors on the local side, a lot of my information that I've collected doing the audio forensics, it's not really the next door neighbors that are involved. It's one person inside of that neighborhood affecting everybody in the neighborhood. one person has a local connection that actually can do up to 2 blocks worth of targeting in every single home. And that has to deal with the mesh network systems that are currently being worked on, along with the convolutionary network systems and the AI network systems and neural network systems. A lot of it is done through Blue Dot. You can look at up the Blue Dot program or Blue Dot networking. Google it. You can see a lot of that has to deal with global echelon units too.
Blue
So they're
Dot is
yeah,
the name of it. Blue Dot.
it's called Blue Dot. Yes. So we'll look that up. And because they're creating different networks for different country. Now, every country has a different standard. Every country is also going through different types of security. Like I realized when I was in Belgium, right, they have a lot of motion sensors. They have a lot of security dealing with lights, right? And going on and off, energy efficiency, right? So there's a lot of experimentation on that side. Biometric data, motion sensors. When you're walking into a room, the lights automatically turned on. Where here in the U.S., it's more network based. So every country has their different types of network systems that they're building, and that usually it goes through the IEEE, which is basically your electronic foundation, and then you go through IANA, which has to deal with mass global networking, and that's where your LLC3, the DoD, come into play, and more. That's more on the work that Bobby Pesh does. So she focuses on that area. So with the different types of networks, that has to deal with it. I kind of got lost. Oh, we were talking about the next door neighbor. So one person is localized and will affect the whole neighborhood. And you have to think that there are multiple victims on here. They can be manipulating your neighbor just like they're manipulating you. And they're causing fights to make you believe that they're involved. Now, this isn't for some of them, right? This isn't for everybody, but some of them, some of the victims, that is actually happening to. While others, they are truly involved because they have some form of connection or are paid out. It just kind of depends on the individual person and what they're going through. Um, I like a lot of people get mad when I don't discover their next door neighbor. Well, that's because they weren't involved, and I can't prove otherwise unless we either do more audio forensics or we figure out a way to gather evidence to help you out. And evidence collection is key when trying to work on a case or trying to investigate or help that victim out solve their problem. I mean, one of these people, they actually have whole hotel rooms that they monitor. So picture a Hyatt that has 5 levels, 500 rooms, right? One person is monitoring it and manipulating 500 people inside of that hotel room at one time.
That's
So,
interesting now.
yeah. Yeah, you kind of have to bury the situation. So, a lot of those aren't easy questions. There are people that I've found or done audio analysis for. Somnia could verify this information, that I captured a name. Now, when she did a background check on that name, turns out that name actually lived in her old apartment 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So there's no way that I would know that information because that is way before she even learned. I've done another one where I captured a name of a person, and the client was like, how did you capture that name? How do you know that name? I go, I don't know that name. It was just something I heard in the audio. She goes, that's so and so. And they introduced you as somebody else. So you only know them as this person, not by that name, but you know what that person's real name is. And it's because the person was sex trafficking that person. So, and that they knew the real name of the victim, and I captured the name of the victim. So,
Okay.
when talking with people and learning about your story and situations, sometimes you have to go into the past. You have to look into the past and find out where the source is coming from and identify that key information that could correlate your story or what is happening to you now.
Well, in some cases that is possible, but there are many cases where people absolutely have no clue why they are in this program and how they got inside.
Well, you
Yeah.
don't have to have a reason. It like here in the US, if you're following the weaponization of the FBI, they they take phone calls. A next door neighbor could say, "Hey, I don't like this person. I think they're a terrorist," and then automatically you're put on a terrorist watch list, without severe background check or anything. People like to destroy people's lives. During COVID, they told people to turn them in if they didn't get their vaccine or shot, right?
Oh,
You were
really?
put on a list. Oh yeah.
This is crazy.
That
Absolutely
that's
crazy.
all coming out. In order, a lot of that has to deal, and these are evil people, and you have to realize that it is a battle against good or evil because they're just out to get everybody and destroy everybody's lives. It's not about it being part, but a lot of the military, I've found out, every victim has some connection to the military. Every victim. You just have to look at that path and find out. Well, my dad never worked in the military, but they work for IBM. Okay, IBM is a government contractor, right? IBM built the first computer systems like Fortran. So IBM has definitely different types of connections, government connections, or yeah, they were never in the military, but their father was, or they were in they work for a specific company. Well, that company, whether you realize it or not, has third party contractors to a federal agency or a governmental agency. So everybody is about 98% of my clients have some type of governmental federal connection, military connection on their side of the family.
Wow, that's a lot. Amy, we talked about audio forensics, but you're also doing thermal scans.
Yes.
We didn't talk about this. Can you explain what it is and how you use it as a tool?
Oh, yeah, sure. Thermal tomography is basically what it is, and it captures the microwave radiation, the infrared radiation, ultraviolet light that is being penetrated into your body system. Now, a lot of our body have luminous capabilities within our bloodstream because of the hemoglobins that actually can be picked up by the ultraviolet light. And that is how they are seeing inside of our bodies with the electrons. Now, the electrons produces a photon. When a microwave weapon system hits that electron, it vibrates it and it bounces it up inside the nucleus, depending on how many rings of the nucleus it has. And then once it stops, it drops and emits a light or a photon, and it could actually light up the body system and capables for bioengineering and biomechanics. Now, what the thermal imager does is because it's infrared capabilities, it actually can pick up on those microwave radiation levels that or the ultraviolet light or the infrared, the laser beam technology systems that is getting absorbed into the skin. So what I do is I take physical photos of your bodies. I look for identifying wounds that are on your body. And then I take 3 sets of thermal images on the body. And then I analyze them, bring the physical wounds out because they can be caught on a camera system, a regular camera system. All you do is have to change a lot of different, actually, 3 main components could bring it out. Saturation, um, hold on, sharpness, and usually a hue, like some form of contrast. And those could actually bring out the microwave wounds on a body. And the thermal imagers, a lot of times they come up as dark rings or circles or bruises on the body too. Why? Because of the arteries and the veins that they're hitting along um, with the microwave weapon systems. So they come up more as dark spots, discoloration. You have to look at the electromagnetic spectrums too, because the thermal images give out specific type of spectrums depending on what thermal imager that you have. So each one and what color that you're using too. So then you have to correlate that color spectrum with the electromagnetic spectrum that is on the invisible spectrum scales. I don't know if you know about that.
Yes, yes, of
Every
course.
Okay, so every electromagnetic spectrum, whether it's microwave, they have a color code, right? And then you
Okay.
have to switch that color code in with the thermal imager spectrums that you're using. So you kind of have to convert it and pay attention to that. A lot of the times I could capture different pulsed effects, electrical stimulation that is going throughout the body, connections from one nerve to the other nerves, or whether it's an anamnesis or a venous network system, and they use a microwave on the venous network system. Usually that's within the chest and the breast and the abdomen, and that usually affects key areas like the large and small intestines and the liver are the main ones that I'm finding that are affecting all the victims. Not really the kidneys, it's always the large and small intestines. That's what caused the nausea or the irritable bowel syndrome. A lot of the finds within the muscles, too. Specific areas in the muscles that are being hit, those have to deal with major components with the heart, like the vena cava, the aorta. A lot of it has to deal with neural pathways, compressions, different type of compression systems that are being used and identified. Compressions are for the microwave weapon systems that are being used, maser weapon systems. You talked a little bit about that. I think I was the first one to actually release that information out into the public during a presentation at one of the TI rallies. Though the maser weapon systems are microwave and laser technology systems. They're usually circular, then it has a white dot in it. And those maser systems could actually produce pulse generation as well. Um, so when identifying the weapon, I know that was probably, it has a small little dot in it. Kind of looks like that.
Okay.
So that
Yeah.
that's a type of maser weapon that would be on a person's body. Now, laser burns are more rectangular shape. um I don't know if you can see that right here.
Mhm.
They're more
Yeah.
rectangular shape. They break out. They have discoloration on side of the skin. So there's different types of features that you could look through the physical body examination. um like the ultraviolet light, the threshold points are the freckles on your body. And no, a lot of people don't. Those are the like the cherry enigmas that are coming on your body as well. Those could be laser technology or actually precision technology systems. Um, I call them ultraviolet light because usually with laser beams, they have to have some form of ultraviolet. ultraviolet capabilities in there. So I call them ultraviolet light. And like microwave wounds, they are all over the place. They kind of look like that. They have no distinguishable pattern at all. So usually the microwave pulses and the maser weapons. There's gyros. Gyros. I actually could probably share some of the screens. Gyros that are being used, that usually comes out with a, a triangle shape. Those are
what does it mean, gyro? What does it mean? I don't know the
a
word.
gyro is a type of precision laser, and precision has microwave capabilities in with it too. It's just the shape of it and the scar, which is actually a shape of a triangle. There's multiple different types of laser technologies. One is also called a stack, and when this is another type of laser technology, precision laser technology. These are physical wounds that I find on the body as well, and they stack over each other. And this is usually used with laser technology, but it will show up as a square on side of the victim's body when I'm picking it up. So there's different types of features. I look at grids, I look at patterns. I could identify arc systems inside of there to prove the electrical stimulations. Arcs usually are precision lasers or linear phase array systems that are being used. Identifying the wounds is key, and it hits specific nerves on the body along with the arteries and veins, and that's what I do. I identify it, verify it with the thermal imaging, and then I write a report based off of my findings.
Well, what question is important is when I order your service, so to say, and you make a forensics for me, and then afterwards I go to court because you find something on my body, maybe some wounds, some traces of attacks or something. Will the court accept your measurements, or is this accepted by the courts, or do they say no, this is fantastical, this is not possible?
No,
what is your experience?
Right now,
did you have a case in the court of somebody you had a measurement, or was there something?
No, I have not, and I tell people it's strictly experimental, that it has not been proven inside of the court systems. I did send my report out to a lawyer, and the lawyer had medical experts examine the report, and they said that my report was 100% accurate, which is great. So it can be submitted, and or at least we know it could be validated right now, currently at that time. This is where the ICATOR lawsuit comes into play, because I have to write a thesis based off of my findings, and I'm working with Barry Trower on this. He's going to help me get my work published. And well, I'm talking to him about that. We have to snail mail because he doesn't have email or anything. So everything takes like a 2-week process to go back and forth.
Okay.
ICATOR is helping me out with a lot with that, Allison, because she lives in the UK, so mail could get transferred a lot faster between them.
Well, I mean, this is the most important thing.
Right.
When I have some proof, I have to go to court and try to win, because
Right.
this is a
people
crime, and the crime has to be brought
are
to court. Yeah,
yeah, there
in my
are
opinion.
people that are submitting it to their medical doctors, and their medical doctors have listened to me and they agree with the information that is on there, and they're actually writing reports based off of that type of report that I submitted to them. It all depends on how that person is using the report. I tell people you don't have to get these scans all the time. I go, but if you're interested in it, at least with the research study, we could prove it and it helps me write my thesis paper work on it. So we are trying to get it validated inside the court systems. We are trying to move forward, get it published and out there, and we are in the process of doing that. And at least the work has been validated by other microwave experts who can prove my findings are 100% accurate. So
Is this
at
something
least
like a
I'm on the
peer?
right path.
Is this something like a peer review in the science?
It
If
is
you,
like a peer review, yes.
yeah, yeah.
I was in contact at one time with one of the head owners of the EPA, and this was all taking forward, and I was about to do a presentation for the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, but then the Ohio train derailment kind of took over, and I lost my contact with them.
What
So,
is this? Ohio, Ohio what? Ohio?
huh?
What was this? I didn't understand it. Ohio what?
There was a chemical spill in Iowa or Ohio. I can't remember which state exactly, but there was actually 3 train derailments with chemical spills, and one was down in Florida too. That didn't really get much train hype, but there was 2 major ones. But the environmental agency had to step in at that time, and I was also working with another person who said he would give me access to his data, which would be great, except I need data on the victims, not on his equipment. I just wanted to use his equipment to test with the laser technology systems. So I was trying to make leeway on that, and that ended up being a dead end, not going anywhere. But at least I tried, you know.
Amy, I think
So
we are almost on the end of the yeah, of the show today. What advice would you give to people if they want to prove that they are attacked by microwaves, lasers, etc.? What would you say to those people? What should they do? Should they do some audio records at their home or video records,
a
or
lot of it
should
is
they buy
audible.
some measurement devices, special ones, or
Um a lot of it, the audio forensics, a lot of it can be captured on the upside. There's a lot more information on the subliminal side, and unfortunately, I can't give that information out to you guys until the patent is created and released. I'm under a contract to be quiet currently at this time. So, um, why? Because the application system, and if anything gets out, then it can be manipulated and be forced to stop or destroyed. So I try to keep everything quiet. When you're being attacked by weapon systems, evidence is key. You need to take always, I suggest always bring a video camera with you, get a body camera. Make sure it has sound recordings with you. That way you have evidence of a perpetrator or proven evidence of where you were at that time in case anybody tries to set you up. Um, I suggest that you guys keep your evidence off of the computer system and keep them offline. Find an external database system or something that you can carry around. There's like a 2 terabyte uh, SD card that you could carry and keep in your purse or keep on your wallet or keep with you at all times, and you don't have to worry about that evidence disappearing. I would make 2 3 copies of it, um just in case if one gets destroyed or ruined, you have a backup copy, but at least you always have that digital copy with you. I would set something up, IP addresses. You have to make sure that you have your network set up correctly. In order to use Wireshark, Wireshark is a free component that everybody could use. I would take a small training course on it. Uh, there are training courses on LinkedIn, I believe, for $100, and it will give you a level 1 certification on Wireshark, and then you could work on your level 2 certification for Wireshark, level 3, level 4, level 5. Read up on cybersecurity and networking. And that is going to help you out a lot, because once you learn what a MAC address is, or blocking IPs, identifying uh, uh, rogue detection systems, and learning how to set up your router configuration, then that's going to help with your uh, hacking in your electronic devices. And what you could do inside your router, you have to do inside of your browser and your computer settings as well. A lot of people forget about those components. They're like, well, I changed the settings in my browser. Well, great. Did you change the settings inside your computer? Did you disable the settings like virtualization? You could go into your BIOS and disable the virtualization inside of there. And that's so simplistic. All you do is have to enter into your BIOS, and you could usually do that by an F2 on most computer systems. When you power it up, and then it goes into BIOS, then it says virtualization, and then you can just press the disable button and then shut it down. You could use a form of protection. It is an encrypted operating system. I have an encrypted operating system. I store it on a 8 gigabyte USB drive, because you want some extra room for processing and memory, stuff like that. It only takes 4 gigabytes, but I downloaded it on an 8 gigabyte. You basically plug this into the computer system. It's an encrypted operating system on top of your operating system. So you could download this. Tails is probably the best one, or I sell them, because I have to sell them to you guys. Why? Because shipping and handling, downloading it, the SD drive costs money. Do you want it on something like that, or do you want it on a 256 gigabyte storage, so that all costs money, and shipping and handling and stuff like that. So otherwise you can download it for free. So if you download it for free, you can go straight to Tails operating system, and it's an encrypted operating system, has a built-in firewall, and it's an overlay. And basically it starts with the boot up process when you're booting up your computer system, and you just enter the SD stick instead of the regular computer, and it's the criminals will stay on the Windows side, and they can't access the operating system side. And from there you can configure it. I would read the manual. Definitely read the manual. If you're not, welcome to, like, you're going to learn so much about it, like password management systems and things like that. Password management systems, those are free too. You could download a password management system and store all your passwords in there. I have mine saved up on a little notepad. I keep it in my wallet, the max password with me, it's like a 100-digit password that I could use on it. And that helps with voice to skull technology, because you don't even have to know your password. All you do is use a copy and paste feature, and I could do a presentation or something small like that for this
Well,
section.
I used the password manager, and they hacked me all anyway.
Oh, well, that's probably, well, depending on the password management system that you have. There's a KeyPass that is very, very good. I have never had any problems and issues. You could change your
Yeah.
password all the time. I generate my passwords to be 50 or higher.
They also hacked me with Tails.
Depending on the company, some are a mandatory, like you could only go 12, or you could only do 20. But those ones, but all it is a simple copy and paste, and you don't even know the password. And you can change your password at any given time, and then restore that information in there. And it's an extra form of protection. So if you forget your password, or you don't want to remember it, I never have any problems or issues with hacking, at least on
I
my
have a lot. I have a
computer
lot.
side.
I have
So
almost daily they hack anything from me, my smartphone, my computer. Even I use Linux. I encrypt my
I mean,
devices. I
there's
used the
brute force
password
attacks
manager in
and
the
stuff,
past, and they even though they hacked me in
but you're going to
everything they
make
do.
them
Yeah,
work though. If you change your password once every 3 months or once a month, at least in that end, you're going to make them work because they have to do some form of brute force attack in order to get into that operating system, or they're going through the companies to get your password information. Um, but you're going to make them work. And that's the whole entire thing. And that's where monitoring your network comes into play with Wireshark, because if you find out that they're accessing through some form of file, then that's you're going to collect that information and be able to trace IPs. So that's key. So I mean, if you got to do the work, and if you can't, I can't do the work for everybody, but you got to sit there and take the time and do the work. And that is going to help out a lot of people because it's a deterrence. And once you
yeah. I
change
think
all of
we
that
all
up,
have to.
you got to
I
deter.
think we all have to learn a lot of about these technologies and about computers and so on. Yeah,
Right.
Amy, thank you for your time that you took your time today. Maybe as some last words, you can. What do you think how it will be in the future? There are a lot of things going on in the last time. Targeted Justice is doing his lawsuit. Ikator is preparing for lawsuit. There was this demonstration last weekend, and so on. And I think a lot of people are just now coming out and opening and go public and say, yes, this is happening to me. I'm a targeted individual. I'm followed and tortured with new technology. What do you think? What will happen in the next time? Do you see something there? Something important?
I do. I think a lot of it is promising. You know, when I go back out into Belgium, I'm going to be able to at least submit my thesis and be able to submit a lot of reports and go over all of the evidence with their um the patent that I'm creating. It should be released within the next couple of years. So hopefully that will be able to get out into the public as well. Um, it's all a day-to-day process. Targeted justice is on the right path. I believe what they're doing on the US side is 100% accurate. I've read a lot of their briefings and stuff like that. So I really don't know the basis of their case, but I think there's two cases going on with targeted justice. There's a personal case, and then there's one for the FBI watch list for the group in Texas, too. So I'm a little confused on what they're doing in corporation to the 10 complainants and then the victims who signed up for the lawsuit. I'm a little confused on that, but um, there's a lot of positivity. A lot of things are coming out into the public right now. Neurallink technology just got approved for human testing. They're already talking about laws being created within inside the system. And as soon as we can pass these laws, along with like the, at least on the US side, you know, UK is against this technology. If you pay attention to what's happening inside the World Economic Forum, there's a lot of people coming out about this technology too. So there are groups and organizations out there that the TI community is not aware of that is fighting to stop this type of programs from coming out into the public. So there's a lot of things behind the scenes too that's being worked on. And it's all a positive outcome. I think we have a very positive outcome unless war hits. And then
We will end
we're
this.
Yeah.
I think we will end this someday. It's just a matter of time, but they
Then you
cannot
just hope
go.
they hit all the towers and knock everything down and everything's off the electrical grid system. Then we'll be happy for a while.
Yeah, maybe this would work out would work for a while, yeah, but not forever. Yeah, thank you, Amy. Thank you for coming. I wish you a good day, and maybe see you next time for the next interview.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you, Harold.
Have a good time and see you. Bye bye.
All right, bye.